Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gaur from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, CAST. We are back with the course Development Support Communication bearing the code GMC 413. It's our 19th lecture today, and the topic is how to make development communication campaign a success. Well, for all sorts of sustainable development campaigns, all we want is to make our messages popular and to make an impact. For that matter, we need to know how certain ideas become trends while others fail to. We do have an understanding of the process of diffusion of innovation, but now we need to understand the concept of tipping, how certain messages and campaigns tip. So in today's lecture, we'll try to answer two questions. The first one, why do some development campaigns gain momentum while others don't? The second one, how do you start a positive campaign that spreads like wildfire? In order to make your sustainable development campaign a success, you need to be able to make your messages contagious. Yes, I mean contagious, so that your messages keep on spreading to achieve your objectives and goals. What has happened with development communication over time, with the messages created for development, tend to be more information based and dry. So we need to unlearn what we have learned, and we need to search out how we can work it out. So we need to learn from the success of other campaigns in different fields. They don't necessarily need to be from the field of development communication. They can be marketing campaigns, they can be public relation campaigns, they can be political campaigns. We need to learn what makes the difference. So the processes and mechanisms by which some trends achieve exponential popularity while others sputter and fade into oblivion have long been thought to be mysterious and resistant to analysis. However, the central argument today is that there are actually a number of patterns and factors that are at play in virtually every influential trend, ranging from the spread of even communicable diseases to the unprecedented popularity of a particular children's television show. If you analyze the evolution of any major phenomena, you'll find that the processes involved are strikingly similar. The nature of modern culture is such that many new ideas are constantly being introduced from a wide variety of sources, ranging from trend-setting teams in the nation's metropolitan centers to new product offerings from established corporations to new styles of messaging or of content creation. So some of these achieve a measure of steady, consistent success. Some fail, and some take off on an upward trajectory of exponential popularity and influence. On the basis of in-depth research into different fields, industries, and scholarly disciplines, Malcolm Gladwell has put forward that messages and behaviors, they spread like viruses do. The same is applicable to ideas, it is applicable to products. He says that we need to find out the commonalities, and we need to put those in practice into as many new fields in order to make the most out of communication campaigns. Gladwell further clarifies that if we analyze the evolution of any major phenomena, we'll find that the processes involved are strikingly similar. Thus, Gladwell identifies 3 rules of epidemic that determine whether something tips and spreads like wildfire. Whether you're a development communication expert or a marketer or educator, even a social worker, or someone or anyone looking to make an impact, these 3 rules will determine how far your campaign succeeds or fails. Let's discuss these rules. The first rule or the first law of epidemic is the power of the few. That is, a tiny percentage of people are accountable for building huge initial momentum because of their special social gifts, and are single-handedly responsible for many trends around us today. Economists call it the 80-20 principle, the idea that in any situation, roughly 80% of the work will be done by 20% of the participants. The attainment of the tipping point that transforms a phenomena into an influential trend usually requires the intervention of a number of influential types of people. So, what is the law of the few? The understanding that there are few people who are socially active, who have special social gifts. They do 80% of the work in any given situation, roughly. So, for you to make the most out of your communication campaign or your development campaign, you need to focus on this kind of people, these socially gifted people. Not all your messages are meant to be sent by mass media. Rather, you need to find out these people in the society, in the community, in the target audience, and use those as the opinion leaders and use those as the accelerators for making your campaign a success. So, on the path towards tipping point, many trends are ushered into popularity by small groups of individuals that can be classified as connectors, Marvins, and salesmen. I'll be discussing each one of these. But before that, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered, how do we decide, for example, how do we decide that we should donate blood? What makes us decide to donate or not to donate? What makes us decide to take part in a food drive or not to take part in a food drive? What makes us join a community or community cleaning campaign? So, in so many cases, our decisions are heavily influenced by a friend or an acquaintance. If you analyze, you'll realize that so many of your personal as well as professional decisions have been heavily influenced by socially active people in your circle. This is the power of word of mouth. Gladwell, while speaking of the power of word of mouth epidemics, classifies these few socially motivated people into three categories. The first category as Marvins. Marvins are actually data banks. They can't help accumulating and sharing knowledge, like they are in love with knowledge. They fulfill their emotional needs by solving other people's problems. So the only thing they want to do is they want to solve your problem, which is an awfully effective way of getting someone's attention. If you come across someone who is desperate to solve your problem and he's desperate to help you out with all the knowledge he's having, so obviously you're convinced. So they have the knowledge and the skills to start word of mouth epidemics. Marvins are information specialists or people we rely upon to connect us with new information. They accumulate knowledge, especially about the marketplace, and know how to share it with others. Marvins start word of mouth epidemics due to their knowledge, social skills, and ability to communicate. So Gladwell states that Marvins are really information brokers, sharing and trading what they know. We need to focus our communication campaigns on people who are Marvins in the society. We need to search them out, who try to help others. That is all that they know. So if you convince them, if you get them the proper knowledge they need about your campaign, how that development campaign makes a lot of difference. These people are actually into this yearning to help others. So such people are going to actually own the campaigns, and they are going to spread it like anything. Local people are far too effective than mass media, and they do have a big circle as well. So this is very, very important. Now moving to the second category of people, connectors. Connectors are the social glue. They seem to know everyone and naturally connect people across different worlds and communities. They have some instincts that help them relate to people they meet. Such people are source of social power, and word of mouth epidemics are the work of connectors. So connectors are people. So what are connectors? Connectors are people in a community who know large number of people and who are in the habit of making introductions. A connector is essentially equivalent or social equivalent of a computer network hub, which is where all the computers get connected. So this is why this person is called a connector, because he's connected to almost all the people in his or her community. Such people usually know people across an array of social, cultural, professional, and economic circles, and make a habit of introducing people who work or live in different circles. They are people who link us up with the world, people with a special gift for bringing the world together. They are a handful of people with a truly extraordinary knack for making friends and acquaintances. I have come across certain people in my own life as well, so these people are just too good at public relations, and they're just too good at making relationships, and we need this kind of people to take up our communication campaigns, and we need to make the most out of such people. So in spite of the fact that there are setups that hire people as communication experts from outside, actually people from within the community are far too effective. But we need to search out the right people. So Gladwell characterizes these individuals as having social networks of over 100 people. He attributes the social success of connectors to the fact that their ability to span many different worlds is a function of something intrinsic to their personality, combination of curiosity, self-confidence, sociability, and energy. Connectors are that kind of people who are connected to anyone and everyone in their community, and they are well known in that community, means they enjoy a good reputation. So when they say something, when you need connections within a community, you need this kind of a person who helps you out to spread the message. Then there is another very important category of people. That's a salesman. Salesmen are persuaders. They are charismatic people with powerful negotiation skills. They tend to have an indefinable trait that goes beyond what they say, which makes others want to agree with them. These people are extremely persuasive. Their persuasion is subtle, hidden, and they have an unspoken influence on others, especially others' decisions about day-to-day things. Their non-verbal cues are as or more important than their verbal cues. So these people, they tend to persuade people a lot, and their persuasive skills, their charismatic personality, once again, plays a very important role to make any communication campaign a success. I'll repeat all these three, like we'll just wind up about these three kinds of people. This was the first law. So what are the three kinds of people? Marvins, who know it all, they provide the message. Connectors, who knows them all, they spread the message. Salesmen, persuades them all with the skills to persuade us when we are unconvinced of what we are hearing. So salesmen actually do the persuasion. Marvins are people who have a strong compulsion to help others by helping them make informed decisions. Connectors are individuals who have ties in many different realms and act as contacts between them, helping to engender connections, relationships, and cross-fertilization that otherwise might not have occurred. Salesmen are people whose unusual charisma allows them to be extremely persuasive in inducing others' decisions and behaviors. So if we are starting, or if someone is starting a new campaign, they shouldn't waste their resources. They need to focus their resources on these three groups of people. If individuals representing all three of these groups endorse and advocate a new idea, it is much more likely that it will tip into exponential success. Yes, this is very, very necessary. This is missing in the communication campaigns that are being developed currently, because people do not learn from the experiences of others. Okay, moving towards the second law of epidemic, that is the stickiness factor. Another crucial factor that plays a key role in determining whether a trend will attain exponential popularity is the stickiness factor. This refers to a unique quality that compels the phenomena to stick in the minds of the people and influence their future behavior. For example, there are so many advertisements going on that have their slogans and their taglines, or even their songs that you cannot stop humming. Actually, these are powerful messages because they are sticky. So this is the second rule of epidemic, the stickiness factor. When you are drafting any messages for your development campaign, you need to plan the stickiness of the message, that it should stick in the minds of the people, it should stick in the mind of the target audience. The stickiness factor refers to the specific content of a message that renders its impact memorable. Do you remember television program Sesame Street? Actually, it pioneered the properties of the stickiness factor. Thus, it enhanced the effective retention of educational content as well as the entertainment value. When Sesame Street was launched, and by that time, television was not actually considered as a medium for developing literacy. But Sesame Street worked it out. It made the children television sticky, and for that and since then it has celebrated over 50 years. This is a big success. For example, it was not considered an educational medium, and Sesame Street made it into an educational medium. Sesame Street was used to develop literacy. So see, it challenged whatever the conditions were, whatever the assumptions were. Then why did it turn television into a educational medium? Because Sesame Street succeeded in making television sticky. So the tough part is to find the right stickiness factor for your specific target audience. If you're not achieving the desired effect in your campaign, just take a step back. This is why we discussed pre-testing earlier. Test different formats and structures of your message with your target audience to see which one sticks. For that matter, you don't need to go for big, huge changes. Rather, success often hinges on small details such as placements and sequencing rather than major changes such as a revamp of the content. Remember, we have discussed news formats, inverted pyramid format. So it was just a change in the sequencing of information that made a huge impact on how people took those stories. This is why inverted pyramid format still exists, and it has its own benefits. It was the same pyramid, that it was just inverted, a little bit of change. So this makes a difference. Now moving towards the third or the last rule of epidemic, that is the power of context. Human behavior is sensitive to and strongly influenced by its environment. Gladwell explains that epidemics are sensitive to the conditions and circumstances of the times and places in which they occur. Our environments and social norms define what acceptable behavior means. They constantly and consequently shape our actual behaviors. Someone who is law-abiding and peace-loving in one environment may commit serious crimes in another. So, if the environment or historical moment in which a trend is introduced is not right, it is not as likely that the tipping point will be attained. Thus, a few small but influential changes in the environment would allow the trend to tip. Same is the case for a development campaign. You need to plan how that development campaign goes. For example, if you're doing a campaign for clean societies, for example, or cleanliness in the community, in the streets, you need to plan which smaller things matter. For example, even wall chalking matters. For that matter, there is another important theory that I'll like to discuss briefly. It's called the broken window theory. It states that broken windows in a neighborhood will lead to higher violent crimes. It is based on the power of context, and in order to reduce, for example, crime in any area, we need to fix the windows rather than arrest people for crime. Same is the case if we want to introduce cleanliness in a street, in an area. We need to consistently ensure that the setups are clean, and within little time, the community itself will take it up. This had happened in New York, where the same broken window theory was applied to actually reduce crime. They started with subway crime, and they just cleaned up all the graffiti on the subway cars, and they started arresting people like fare dodgers. They would not allow anyone to dodge fares. So with that, people just started, like, the whole setup changed, and there was a reduction in crime, just because people thought that even smaller things are not allowed. Even graffiti on subway cars is not allowed, or even fare dodging is not allowed. So people adopt if the idea or product fits the context, the situation, the occasion in which they find themselves. Thus, I would conclude that just as a single sick person can start an epidemic, so too can a small but precisely targeted push cause popularity of a development campaign or a development communication campaign. You need to ponder how you can make use of these three principles of epidemics, whether you work for development communication campaign or you work in any other mass communication setups. Consider how certain social media hashtags, for example, became so very popular while others failed to. Did we ever try to have our communication campaigns have their own hashtags? If you dissect, you'll find that these three principles are at play for current trends as well, especially on the social media. Thank you very much.